The difference here is that, particularly in the major parties, is that neither of them are really seen as the disruptors, particularly in, as I say, in these outer suburban communities. Labor is just kind of shown them again over these past few years that it's going to be kind of incremental, do a little bit here and there, but it's not doing anything transformative to affect their lives. And the Liberals are still the party of the economy, big business, and those sorts of things. As I say, they're considering holding their nose and voting for that, just because they've lost confidence in Labor. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Liberal is kind of seen as this in itself kind of attractive, disruptive force.
Yeah, so there you have it. There's no direct parallels with the US, and I think, some within the party, the usual suspects, are getting excited within the coalition about the prospect of there being a repeat of some kind of, Trump effect here. I think there is an element of it, but you can't overstate it, right?
Well, there are parallels there, but in a major way, the parallel falls to the ground because the proposition that people had in the United States was, you're better off 4 years ago, we're going to restore Donald Trump, here he is again. Do you think people in Australia are saying, let's have the Morrison government back?
Nope.
I don't know.
But that's the whole point, isn't it? Dutton is very different from Morrison in personality and I think probably policy too.
That's true. That is true. They're not the same men at all. But it isn't an argument. If you're making an argument for restoration, it doesn't really work because all I'm saying is essentially is that Labor can run the line. Why were they were no good last time? Why will they be any good next time? Now, fairly or unfairly. I mean, I think what Simon says is, and I think this is where Labor have an opportunity, is that they are, as I said, curious about Dutton. They're open to for the first time, but they're only, they're not yet sold on him. Now, that does give Labor an opportunity if they can convince people that, same old Liberals, they haven't done their time. They still want to cut Medicare. They still want to do this. They still don't like all the sorts of things that people in the outer suburbs are nervous about. I mean, one of the things that's different between the United States and here, obviously, is that people in Australia are far more government dependent than people in the United States. We have a free Medicare, we have a free health system, we have an NDIS. People have a much better, tighter relationship and different relationship to the state than people do in the United States. And there are certain kind of economic levers that Labor can pull in frightening people about that draws them away from the coalition, which isn't to say that there isn't an opportunity for Dutton and the coalition. There's a big opportunity. But what they have to do is they have to find a way of sort of allaying those sort of atavistic, historic fears that people in these rare, dead red seats, as the Liberal Party calls them, people living in those seats have always had for the Liberal Party. And if they can overcome that fear, then I think the sky's the limit for the Liberal Party. In a sense, but don't forget, this is a strategy the Liberals have been at for a while now. Scott Morrison, until he got derailed by becoming personally increasingly unpopular, he was trying this strategy. He tried it in 2019 with some success, and they were desperate to push ahead in 2022, thinking that the amount of money that they pumped into Australia, to save people from COVID would compensate for people's long-term fears about the way the coalition treats welfare and things like that. Now, it didn't come off in the end, essentially, as I say, because by the time Morrison left office, he was so unpopular that it wouldn't have mattered what he said. But the proposition is still there, and it's an opportunity that Dutton has, but he is really going to have to reassure people. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes about it. I think his IR policy will be a very, very big sign about how serious he is about going after these people. Everybody in the Liberal Party hates Labor's IR changes. It's almost the one thing people in the Liberal Party agree on is that the Australian industrial relations system is no good. But it's also one of the few things on which they understand it's a third rail of Australian politics, and they've got to be very, very careful about how they approach it. They're also got extra pressure at the moment because business is screaming about the changes that Burke brought in. They want them wound back, but they also know, the Liberal Party itself knows, that if they go hard on that, then they're opening themselves up to a work choices style scare campaign.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But we're looking at, I mean, Simon Welsh is right, and the parallels with America is talking about the broken system, not, you know, returning to the guy where life was a little bit better 4 years ago. The Reagan line certainly worked in America. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Peter Dutton reminded me just the other day that he, in fact, used that line pretty much in his budget reply speech. So it is all about cost of living. Simon Welsh says people don't believe in the political system, or don't believe the political system as is delivering for them at the moment. So what Dutton is getting is points for having a crack. They're not sure about nuclear, but that they appreciate the big idea, the disruptive part of that policy. I think there's something in that, because I don't think Labor attack line on Peter Dutton being, the most disruptive guy in politics at the moment, he's a wrecker, he's all of that kind of thing. I don't think that's going to work for them. And if we're going into a campaign sooner rather than later, they need to really not rely on, you know, Peter Dutton essentially being painted as a monster, as he has done so in the past by Labor. It's just not going to work.
There was a poll I wrote about, I can't remember which firm did it, it escapes my ageing memory at the moment, a few weeks ago, and it talked about the sincerity. It was sort of had elements about the sincerity factor, and it essentially said that even people who disagreed with Dutton and were not going to vote for him thought that he was, the positions he had taken were sincerely held. I.e. he was a genuine person.
Authenticity.
A genuine person who holds authenticity. An authentic person who holds beliefs. And unfortunately, this is a bit of a problem that is emerging for Labor, is that more and more people seem to think that poor old Albo doesn't really stand for anything. Or, you know, he stands for, unfortunately, for himself. And if Labor can't find a way of dialing up the kind of head-to-head choice there, i.e., making it, you know, Albo's. They need to find a way of convincing people that Albo has a value system that accords with them and how he's going to make things better for them. Dutton. We know what Dutton stands for. Dutton stands for strong borders. He stands for, you know, a tough dealing with the people overseas who are unfriendly to Australia. We need Labor needs to. Well, to go back to Osama bin Laden, you know, 20 plus years ago, he said, when people see the strong horse or the weak horse, they go for the strong horse. And that is Labor's biggest problem at the moment, in my opinion, is they need to find a way of pumping up the Prime Minister as a product. And if they can't do that, they're in real strife.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. Great to chat today. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll leave it there.